Hi, and welcome to our video presentation. So today, I'm going to discuss how are you going to connect a database into your C# application. So to start with our discussion, so let us first identify our objective. Number one, so we're going to use the MySQL data classes to manage database records using C#. So we'll be using the MySQL databases, and we're going to use the MySQL data DLL so that we can use the classes that allows us to manage our database. Number two, so we're going to write C# methods to connect application with the databases. So we'll be using the connection string, and we're going to establish connection from our C# application to our MySQL database. Number three, we're going to identify the steps on how to retrieve data into the database and bind them to a C#. So we'll be using a DataGrid view to bind our retrieved data from our database to our C# application. And number four, we're going to write the methods to display information on DataGrid view. So aside from connecting your application to a database, we're going to develop a statements that allows us to display our records into our database. And number five, we'll be performing some searching of data, and once the data is retrieved, we're going to display them into our data grid. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is to prepare our tools and materials. The first thing that you need to prepare is the XAMPP application that contains MySQL database. So make sure you successfully install, and I'm really sure that you already installed this one because of our previous activity or task that I need you to perform. So majority of this class has already installed the XAMPP. Number two, the SQL application that allows us to manage our databases. PDF reader to read the materials that I provided. Number four, the minimum requirements for this activity is Visual Studio 2010, since some of you might be using the old version, so it's okay to use them. And I will be using the Visual Studio 2010 so that the older computers can also accommodate the old version, and if you're using higher version, it's not a problem at all. So you're free to use the new version of Visual Studio application or IDE. And also, we'll be using the MySQL data.dll. So I will be providing the link. So in this particular link, we are going to download the MySQL data.dll and the sample database that we are going to use in order to access by our C# application. Please, before you start watching the video, or before you proceed to our next video, you need to download first the files needed from the following link. So please follow that link and download the two files there. Okay, so before we start our activity, let me first give an overview of the task that we are going to do in this particular video. Number one, you need to download the needed material. So I will be providing a demonstration of how we can acquire the materials needed for this activity or task. So number two, we're going to import the database into our local computer. So using SQL, we will be importing the sample backup of our database. Number three, we're going to set products from a C# WinForm. So we'll be designing or adding a DataGrid view control so that we can display our products or the contents of the database. Number four, we are going to write a database class. Okay, we're going to add a C# class so that we can write a database statement so that we can connect and retrieve information. Number five, we will be developing a statements that allows us to establish a connection from our application to MySQL database. And number six, we're going to bind. So after establishing connection, we're going to bind, or in other words, we're going to display the retrieve record into a C# control, for example, the DataGrid view control. And number seven, we'll be performing a simple searching method so that we can retrieve information into our databases. Okay, so let me give you a review of what we will be doing. So today, we'll be using the old method of retrieving information. So that is ado.net. So if you are familiar with the new methods, I assume or I suggest to stick with them. Or if you are still uh, the connection of your application to database is still new to you, then stick with this procedure. Then we will be updating our procedure from ado.net to the new method, which is the entity framework. So for today, let us focus first on ado.net, so that we will be having a background of what are the basic things that we need to do in order to develop our database. Okay, so we have these ado.net components. So in order to establish connection from your SysApp application to our database, you need the following components. Number one is the dataset. So dataset is a components that we need to use in order to handle a particular data or information coming from our database. And in order to establish connection with our database, we need to have data provider. So the data reader will be the components that we need to use in order to execute and retrieve commands, and the command will be the components that we're going to use in order to handle SQL commands. And connection, this is our components that handles connectivity from our application to our database server. Okay. Okay, so what is ado.net? So again, ado.net is an active objects, data objects.net rather, is a primary data access API for .NET framework. It provides the classes that you use as you develop database application with C#. So you don't need to write old long code just to retrieve information. All you have to do is to use the existing classes provided by MySQL in order to easily retrieve information on your database. Okay, so these are the core components, objects of the .NET data provider. So as I have mentioned a while ago, the connection establishes a connection to a database. The command, it represents individual SQL statement that can be executed against our database. And the data reader, this is a read-only, forward-only access to the data in databases, while the data adapter provides link between the command and connection objects and dataset objects. In our example, since this is our first activity to connect, we'll be using the data reader as a forward-only object, since we are not going to add or modify or delete that returns result when we execute commands. So since we are going to retrieve the data, so we'll be using the data reader. Okay, we use provider. So the .NET data provider provides ado.NET classes that are responsible for working directly with your databases. And we'll be using these classes. So after you acquire the files, we'll be using the system.data that is for SQL Server. So other .NET providers are available to provide efficient access to a non-Microsoft databases such as MySQL, Oracle, and SQL Anywhere. So, but anyway, data that's a SQL client is a default reference that we use if we are using the SQL Server made by Microsoft. But if you are using a different databases such as MySQL, we'll be using different provider. So if you are using MySQL, you will be using the mysql.data.mysql client. So it allows us to access the MySQL databases. Okay, so these are the data provider class that I mentioned. So if you want to use MySQL as your database, you need to use MySQL connection for command, MySQL command. For data reader, MySQL data reader, and for using data adapter, you can use MySQL data adapter. Okay, but anyway, let's move on to the task that I mentioned. So the first task that we are going to do is to download the necessary files or materials. Okay, so in order to download the files needed, first you need to have an internet connection. So this will allows us to access our files online. So you need to open your browser and just paste the link that I provided from the slide. So the drive for the files will be open. So you need to download the two files, the DLL and the database. Okay, so while waiting, so it depends on your internet connectivity. So in order to download the files, all you have to do is to select the files that you need to download. Okay, you can also use the shift method and choose download from your browser menu. So in order to download the contents, all you have to do is to select the contents, and you can use shift to select the two files, then choose the more options from your window and choose download. That's it. So once the computer finished downloading the files, all you have to do is to okay, so in this case I'm using the downloader, so it automatically pop-ups, but you don't use the internet download manager. All you have to do is to locate the downloaded files from your taskbar. So in my case, I will be start downloading the files. Okay, so now it says that my file is finished downloading, so I have to go to the location where the file is saved. So once you click the open folder, so you need to locate the downloaded document. So in my case, it will be like this. So all you have to do is to transfer this file to your desktop so that it will be easier for us to locate if you want to access this document. So in my case, I will be selecting my desktop. Okay, from there, so using your desktop, so create a new folder there. So in my case, I will be creating a new folder. So let's say task, I think this is task 4. Okay, then open this folder and paste. Okay, so you need to extract. If you are not using WinRAR, I suggest you download them. It's free. Or the Windows 10 operating system has this free extracting folder option from your folder. So right click, just extract all, or if you are using WinRAR, just extract here. Okay, so now I have these two files already. Now let us proceed with our next task. So our next task will be we need to import this database into our local MySQL server. So in order to do that, you need to have this application. This is what you call XAMPP. The reason why we are using this, it's because it already has a built-in server for developing web applications. So since I don't want to make any configurations, all you have to do is to install this in your local computer and click to start the MySQL server. And after that, you need to open your SQL log. In my case, I will be using the version community edition. It's installable application. So if you have an extra data, you can just download this, or you just use the portable version that I provided. So this is a community edition where it's free and you don't have to pay for any license. So after you open your SQL log, all you have to do is go to the connection, establish connection menu to connect your SQL log with your database. So name your connection. Okay, so you can just write your name, then leave the host as localhost. Since our database server is located in our local computer, leave the username root as it is since we don't have any user defined. So the default for MySQL is root without password, and choose connect. So after connecting, it will be like this. So you'll be now seeing the version of the SQL community. So let us import. So how do we import our database? So to do that, all you have to do is go to database and choose import and choose execute SQL script. Since the downloaded file that we performed a while ago is a SQL script, a backup version of the database, so we need to browse our database. So since I store the file in my desktop, so I will be locating the file in my desktop, and I will be choosing the task 4 and choose sailcodb.sql. So execute, wait for it to finish. So once done, it will display a successful message and the progress bar reached 200% and choose done. So after importing, you need to choose refresh from this menu, okay, so that your imported database will appear on your window. So let's examine the table. So we have this table. So in our activity for today, for our activity, we'll be focusing on this table, the products table. So our task is to retrieve this record and display it into our C# application. So after importing the database, let's start developing our C# application. So open your Visual Studio 2010 or higher version, create a new project. Okay, name your project as your own. For example, you need to name your project as, let's say, task 4. Then provide your last name so that I can identify whose project that I am checking when you submit it. So just type your last name there. Make sure the file name of the project doesn't have any special character like semicolon, especially semicolon. It's okay to use dash or underscore. Then choose the location properly. Okay, so let me adjust my screen. So in this screen, you need to choose the proper location. In my case, my default location is my document. So I will be choosing the folder that I created a while ago. So it is located on my desktop computer. Okay, so I'm going to choose task 4 and select. So the name of the solution will be the name of the folder that will be created on your folder. Okay, aside from that, you need to choose Visual C# as your template. Then choose application. Then click OK. Alright, so let's wait for our Visual Studio to generate our initial form. So after Visual Studio generates the initial project, so as you can see, I have now a folder in my task 4 folder. So it has the solution name that we set a while ago from our Visual Studio. So it contains the necessary files to develop your application. So for now, let's focus on our interface. So now, the first thing that we need to do in our application is set up our program or application to connect with our database. So the first step that you need to do is to import the classes for MySQL. So in order to do that, you need to add the data.dll, which is this file that contains classes for manipulating data for MySQL into your C# application. To do that, you need to go to your project. So for example, in this particular window, Solution Explorer, so if you don't see any Solution Explorer in your Visual Studio, for example, all you have to do is go to View and choose Solution Explorer. So to view the Solution Explorer, all you have to do is go to View and choose Solution Explorer. Okay, so it will now appear in your window. Like this. So in order to add MySQL references or the DLL, all you have to do is right click on the references folder and choose add reference. Then choose browse. You need to locate the DLL. So in my case, it's actually located outside the project. So there. So make sure you select this one and click open. Okay. So after importing the necessary components that we need to use, so to verify, as you can see, I have now the MySQL data. So now let us try to add a class so that we can establish connection with our database. So to add your class, all you have to do is go to project, okay, add class, okay, choose the class template and name your class as, let's say, CLS, say database. Okay. And click add. Okay, so now we have a class. Okay, so the first thing you need to do in order to preparation for connecting your database, make sure this class is public so that all the classes or methods that we develop inside this class will be accessible by other forms. In our case, since the form will connect to our database, so we need to allow the form 1 or the forms to access our database. Okay, so let's write some statements. Okay, now let's start by creating our variable. Okay, I will be creating constant variable string db host. So this will be the host. Okay, which means where your database is located. So it's actually located at the local computer. So I'll be writing the local host address like that. Next, if you still remember the way we connect our SQL into our database, it's the same of doing that, but we'll be writing code instead. So host, username, password, and we are going to choose which particular database that we're going to access. Okay, so now let me finish writing the necessary. So the username of our database is root, which is the default, and the password of our database is blank or none, and the database that we're going to access, so we'll be using DB name or database name is the Salesco DB. So you need to verify the name of your database. To do that, all you have to do is to go back to your SQL, check the Salesco DB. That's correct. Now, since I am finished writing the needed variables, so I use constant so that whenever I need to change the location of the database, this is the statements that I need to modify. Okay, next. By the way, we need to write another constant variable for our connection string. A connection string is a string that we need to use in order to establish connection with our database. So, connection str con, okay, equals. So I will be adding a multi-line. So we need to establish a server. So the address of the server is the DB host. Okay. So we need to add semicolon after each line. Second, part of the connection string is the user ID equals user Okay, let me just copy paste this one so that it will be easier. So next is the password. This would be PWD, and the last one is the database. Okay, so let me just make a full screen. Okay, so this one is your database. Okay, so copy paste. Okay, now let's put semicolon. Oops. Sorry. So this is deepening. Paste. Okay, now, so already finished developing the needed variables in order to connect with our database. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is to create a method that allows us to query our data coming from the table product. So to do that, let's start developing a method. So I will be declaring it as public. So let's create a comment. So this will be the method that we will be reusing or using from time to time to retrieve data from tables. So retrieve data from table. So since we are going to retrieve the data, we use the forward on the components, that is the data reader. So let's try to name public, static. This will be static variable, table, or just use data table. So data table. Okay. So name this as query data. So we'll be accepting a parameter string. Okay, so as you notice, data table is not recognized. That is because we did not use any particular reference that particular data table. Okay, so system data. Okay, so let's try. Okay, so it's now recognized. So now, so it requires a return value. So since we don't have any return value yet, so let's try. Okay, let me just fix my laptop. Okay. Okay, so let's try to continue. So the first thing that we need to do is to establish connection with our database. So right now we'll be try to write using MySQL data SQL client a MySQL connection. Okay, select that. So that is the variable to handle connection. Notice new. Okay, as you notice, it's actually long. So in order to minimize this, try to transfer this at the top of your class and type using. Okay, means you are trying to access all the classes inside the MySQL client. As you notice, it's okay now. So MySQL connection. Okay, so in order to connect with your database, we need to add the connection string that we developed a while ago. Okay. So which means every time that we call the MySQL connection, it will try to connect in our local computer by accessing the root without password and the serial code. Okay. add some semicolon, braces. Okay, now this command will connect with our database. So once it is connected, let's try to connect. So let's perform a try and catch so that we can capture an exception in case there's an error. Catch. Let me check if my screen is still available or okay. So let me remove this one first. Okay. Okay. Now, so catch. So exception. Error exception. Okay. Okay. So let's try to run. In order to test your application, so you need to try opening the connection. So if it encounters a problem, you are going to display a message here in your catch block. So let's try to add message box. Okay, so since it's not yet supported, so let's try adding a reference. So using system dot windows dot forms. Okay. So let's try the message box to recognize. Okay, let's show. So let's inform the user. So error connection. Let's describe the error. So error dot message, and let us allow the user to show a title. So connection. Let us show a message box that button that okay, message box icon that, let's say, exclamation. Okay, colon. Okay, so now this is now your okay. So as you can see, I'm going to make a multi-line so that it will be easier for you to recognize or identify. Okay. Okay. Now, let us continue. Okay. So now, let's return nothing if this is encountered. So once your data table returns none, it may encounter an error, or let's see. Okay. Now, after you open, so it's time to make a command. MySQL command, let's say cmd equals new MySQL command. Okay. Now, let's set up the command. So we are going to set properties of this command. cmd that connection. So since we established connection using CA, this is the active connection, and command type. So if you're using the text command, use command type text. If you're using procedure, use procedure. So command type. So there are several choices. So in our case, we'll be using the string SQL command. So we are not going to use procedure, so use text. Then, what is the command that is being contained? So command text. So we're using _SQL. Okay. Now, we have now set up the properties of our command. So let's try executing them. So using what you call this block allows you to automatically close after executing the block inside the using command. using MySQL Data Reader. Okay, first Data Reader. Okay, so underscore tr equals command that execute reader. So this command will execute the command coming from the SQL statement that we submitted, that we pass from here. So if you want to retrieve record, you need to call this method and submit an argument, the SQL commands, and it will be executed by this command. Okay. So after executing that command, we need to store that retrieve record to our data table. So we're going to use data table, say dt, use a new data table. Okay, and dt dot load. Okay, to transfer that table to our data table so that we can assign it to a DataGrid view. Then return. Okay, now, so this is our block that allows us to retrieve record from our database. So, okay. Now, our next task is to develop our form and test if this is working. So, after writing the needed method for our class, let's start focusing on our form. So this is my form. So I want to make this video short as possible. So I'm not going to design any modify any design that I want. So I'm just add the DataGrid view. Okay, so let me look for DataGrid view. DataGrid. Okay. Okay, so this is now my DataGrid view. I resize them as needed as possible. So in my case, I will be using this. Okay. Now, what particular record that you want to display in this DataGrid view? So let us examine first the records that we have from our table product. So we have code, description, the date, okay, and quality on hand or the stocks, the minimum, the price. So let's just focus on product, description, and stocks. Okay, so to do that, we need to add 3 columns. So to add 3 columns, all you have to do is to right click and choose edit columns. So let's add. So column name, okay, just use the header text. If you want to add a unique name, just do so. So in my case, I'll be just modifying the header text since it will be displayed in your data grid. So let's see, code, product code, okay, read only, then description, and stocks. Okay. Okay. Now I want to modify the size. Okay. Since description is a long string, so I'm going to resize at 200 stocks. Okay. Okay. Now let me adjust it again since I have too much space in my data grid. So let's hit here. Okay. Now. So this is now my form. So how do we set? First, you need to disable adding so that the user cannot add anything since we just retrieve. So editing and delete. Okay. So how do we retrieve data? So to do that, we are going to use our develop method from our class. So to do that, let us open our form. So all you have to do is to view code or just press F7. Okay. Now, after opening your code window, let us declare a variable string this will be the container of our SQL commands. SQL. Okay, let me just zoom in. Okay, so that you can all recognize the command. So let us try to display. Select, let's say, from, something like that. Okay, so this is SQL command that allows you to retrieve information in your database. So let us try to identify what columns that we need to use. So I'm just going to copy paste this one. Paste. So I'm going to need to see the product code, the description, and the stocks quantity. So the number of units on hand. So this means this is the stock available. Okay, so what is the name of our table? So we'll be using the product. Okay, so this will be the argument that we're going to submit in our data table parameter that we declared in our class. So it will be submitted here. Okay, let us rename our table. So it's a good practice to rename your table. So to do that, just right click, rename. So let us call this FRM product list. Okay. Okay, yes. So that the product will be, the class will be renamed. Okay, now let's go back to our form. So now this is now your form. So let's try to write statements that allows us to retrieve our record. So to do that, go to our form. Okay, in your properties, locate the events and choose load. Or you can just double click the form. So let us look for the load. Okay, just click this one. Okay, so it will generate a method called load, form load. So once the form is loads from your computer or from your screen, it will automatically execute the statement inside this method. Okay, so let us make a try statement so that we can capture any particular error. So catch, so exception, error. Okay, now let us declare a data table. This will be the holder of our record coming from the method. So data table, let's call this dt equals to let's say products. So dt products, call this products, and let us call the class the CLS database. So CLS database dot. Okay, as you can see, the method that we developed a while ago is not recognized. So, okay, so this data table will be the components that will handle, or the we call that virtual table that will handle the records retrieved. So in order to do that, we need to call that. So as you can see, the method that we developed from the class is not yet recognized. So to do that, I forgot to mention that you need to use static. Okay. That's why it's not accessible. Okay, then let's try that. Okay, there we go. Now let us pass the SQL command that we defined a while ago. Okay, now so once the SQL is executed inside our class, if the record is correct or retrieved, it will be transferred back to the data table products. Now let's try to what you call this, store the retrieved record from our data table to the DataGrid view. But first, we need to set if we have a record, so that if we have a record, then we need to assign them. So dt products dot rows, which means we found the table that contains rows. That count is greater than 0, which means we have a record to bind into our DataGrid view. Okay, so let us first assign a name to our DataGrid view. So in my case, I will be using properties DG products. Okay, so let us try. So DG products dot data source equals DT products, which means whatever records that this data table has, it will be transferred to DataGrid view. So let's try. Try to test your application. Okay, in my case, as you can see, what happened? Since we defined our custom column, when the data table transferred the record, it creates a new column for that particular record. So in order to fix this one, all you have to do is to manually assign the column name to each column of your DataGrid view. So to do that, right click to your DataGrid view, edit columns, and go to specific columns. In my case, in order to display the code here, all you have to do is to write the column name from your table, this one, copy, and in your property name of the column, assign, so that only the product code will be assigned here, and the description, copy, and paste, and the stocks quantity on hand. Make sure to make sure that you are doing it right. Just copy paste the column and click OK. Now let's try to test. Okay, so now this is now your application. So as you can see, I have successfully developed your application. Now let us try to rename our form. So let's say instead of form 1, product list. Okay, there you go. Now our next task, since we already have that, is to search. How do we search records from our database? So to do that, we need to add an extra, let's say extra space. So let us try to add a label. Okay, let's try to modify and choose. So let me adjust my screen so that it will be visible. Okay, so let's try to add in your particular properties. Let me just go back so that you can see all the screen. Okay, so let's say filter. Okay, so filter. Okay, so we'll try to filter record, let's say by code or by description. So to do that, we need to allow the user to select particular filter option. Okay, so let me modify this one. So how do we filter record? Let's say filter by code and by description. Okay, now so let us try. Okay, so as you can see, I have now a filter option, and the user will now input a particular record that they need. Okay, so in order to do that, we need to type, or we need to add a text box so that a particular criteria will be. So let me adjust the font. Let's look at more bigger so that it will be readable in your screen. Okay, so here okay, so let me adjust this one. Okay, now our objective in this feature of our program is when the user select a particular option, once he or she type the code, once he press the enter key in your keyboard, the program will automatically search a particular record. So in order to do that, let us set our form to display the first option. So to do that, let us rename first our combo box. So let's name it as CBO filter. Okay, then this one is txt search. Okay, now let's go back. So let's make the combo box. So CBO filter that selected index 0. The purpose of this is to make sure that the first item on your combo box will appear first before, which means it will display the contents, not rather than blank. Okay. Now let me change the properties of this to drop down list. Okay, so that the user can not modify the contents of our combo box. It will be like this one. So this is the drop down list. It's uneditable. All you have to do is just click the combo box. Okay, now our next task is to allow the user to type into our text box and press enter instead of using button. So how do we capture enter? So to do that, you need to activate your text box event that capture any key from the keyboard. So to do that, focus your mouse on your text box and choose properties and look for event and look for key down event so that we can capture any. Just double click the blank. Okay, so the key down event or method allows us to capture any input from or any keys from the keyboard. So let's try to identify if the user actually press enter. So this is how you identify. So when the user when the user selects enter key, so let's say that's right. Let's show you press enter. Okay, now let's test. Okay, so let's try. Let's type. The difference between key press and key down is key press, every letter or key that you press, it captures by the text box. But since we are trying to capture only the enter key from the keyboard, we need to use key down. So let's say hello, enter. Okay, as you can see, the enter key is captured. So every time that the user press enter key, it's time to search the data in our database. So that's the purpose of that key down. So in order to capture other keys, just use this key down and choose other properties, like if the user press the escape, what will you do, and something like that. So that's the purpose of it. Okay, so how do we retrieve a specific record? To do that, we are going to modify our SQL command. So to do that, we need to add extra condition in our SQL command. So aside from selecting the record, we are going to use the word clause. Okay, the word clause specifies condition of what particular record that we need to identify, something like that. Okay, but first let us identify which combo box or which filter is being selected from the combo box. So to do that, let's try to use switch statement. Okay, switch statement. Okay, and choose CBO filter that selected index. So let us try to identify which among those choices is being selected. So case 0, which means the code. That's right. Okay. So let's create a variable string query equals that. Okay. So let's just use a temporary variable query. Okay. So product by product code. Our filter is by product code. Okay. So query would be the value of our SQL plus the word clause. So what will be the column name of the product table? So in our case, the column name of that code is p underscore code. So let's start where p code equals the string plus fix the search, the text plus double quote, single quote, and double quote. So this will be identified that the data that we're looking in our database is a string. Okay. Now, okay. So let's try to execute. Okay. So in order to do the execution part, let us create the code that we develop from form load. So data table is a local variable. Data table, let's say or just with in a shorter way, we just copy paste this one. So try catch. Okay, it's more convenient to do this. Okay, so let's try. Okay, now let's say we are going to search the product. Let's say this one. Copy. Okay, paste, enter. Okay, nothing happens. Why is that? Okay, let's see what's wrong. Oh, I see. We did not apply query to our method. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, let's try. Let's locate again the product. Okay, and paste, enter. So now, as you can see, a specific record. But what about the description? But right now we'll be using the different method for description. Since code is specific for searching, right now we're going to add a case 1, which means searching by description. So description. Okay, so great. Okay, let's copy paste this one. Copy, paste. This time, instead of using equal, we use like. Okay, but instead of p code, we use the column name of our table, p descript, as our criteria. Okay, let me remove this one. Instead of equal, the purpose of like is it's like searching a string match of that keyword that you type. So we need to add character % so that even a slight significant string from the keyword will be also searched from the database. We call that wildcard method in a SQL command. So adding % will identify not exact but matching record. So let's try. Oh, I have duplicate rate. So F5. Okay, instead of code description, let's say hammer, enter. Okay, all the records that has hammer keyword will be displayed. Okay, now our application is now done. So hopefully by watching the video again and again, you can be able to perform the same program that I developed. So let's review our task. So this is our task. We downloaded our materials, import the database, set the form, we add the classes, we add the connection, we bind the table or the record to our DataGrid view, and we search a specific record from the database. Okay. So I think that would be all. Thank you for watching. So after this video, you'll have a task to perform, and hopefully if you don't understand some of the procedure, you can just drop by a message or troubleshooting. Make sure your exam is running and make sure you point the correct field when you type the word clause, or when you type the SQL command, you reference your table so that you don't encounter any mistakes or error. Okay, so that's all, and hopefully you finish the task. Okay, good luck.